The next thing I'm going to show you is how to go about reinforcing your bass track with MIDI. Now I have a plugin that I designed. It's called Destroyer, and it's basically just a low, it's focused on low end, it's a synthesizer. And you can do like bass drops and stuff like this. So you can do stuff like, but you can also control it with MIDI. So the concept here is we want our low end of our bass to be perfect, but we also want the high end to be real. And I know there's a lot of people out there that use programmed bass. The problem with that is you can never really, it's hard to get it to sound like a human played a bass. So you get the best of both worlds by using a MIDI track to control the low end, and then you just remove the low end from your actual bass track, and then just keep like the mid frequencies and the high frequencies. And then you just go through and program exactly what you played. So here's an example. So you can tell it's less articulate. You can't tell one note from the next. But when it's low end, it doesn't matter because you've got the high end track that's going to do the articulating. So I'm going to just play it one more time and I'll show you with the Sub-Destroyer coming in and out. And this part too. Now, let's also compare it with the real bass. All right, so here's with the Sub-Destroyer bass. And then here's with the real bass. Not as powerful, I think. Would you agree?
Especially when you get to the hits way harder with the Sub-Destroyer.
Yeah, so this is just one of the tricks that we use like in my productions in order to make everything as powerful as possible. I like to program the low end. You can do it with a lot of different, there's a variety of different synthesizers that you could use. You could even take a program bass, for example, and program the whole song and then just keep only the low end portion of the program bass and combine it with your real bass. But I like to use sine waves because they're a little bit more pure. And you can also, you know, there's various harmonics and things that you can add. For example, in my plugin, we have a drive section that you can add like distortion and stuff. And then we also have harmonic enhancement, which allows you to kind of make some of your lower frequencies more apparent on smaller speaker systems. Let's see if I can show you that. So you can see one's deeper, but the other one has more like mid-range. That's really useful for, you know, making your, if you've got a really low tuning and you want to make your bass more apparent, like in a laptop or in headphones or something, you use this and it gets the job done pretty clearly. All right, so I mean that's pretty much it for bass, I think. Do we have any questions?
Yeah, Marcel wants to know how often do you change bass strings when you're recording? Is it different than guitar?
It's definitely different from guitar. Bass strings are a lot more expensive. But I think we would probably do it maybe 2 or 3 times in a whole record. So try to do 3 or 4 songs on one set of strings. Now, if you're dealing with a lot of different tunings, then obviously you have to change the strings each time you change the tuning because you're going to have a different string gauge. So you just have to be aware of that.
Marty wants to know, do you pan both bass tracks or just blend them?
Okay, so no panning at all.
No, and that's all straight up.
That's a good point. Pretty much the way that I do bass is always mono. I think bass sounds kind of weird stereo, or like maybe if you're doing some kind of special effect like chorus or flanger type thing, it might make sense. But the idea of bass is that it should be center. You should have the same amount of bass in your right speaker as you do in your left speaker, and you basically do that by keeping everything that has to do with bass 100% mono as much as possible.
Awesome. How would you program bass slides or ticks with Subdestroyer?
Good question. So there is a part on here where the bass actually begins to bend, and it's right here. It's just a slight bend, and on the Subdestroyer we have it. So all it really is you're continuing to play the string like that, and as you're playing it, you're bending the string. So we use the pitch bend articulation. So once you go into the pitch bend articulation, you can actually draw, pitch bends like this, and Subdestroyer will pay attention to those. See? And I programmed that in because I knew that was played in there. We have another one where there's a bass slide at the end. Sounds like this. That's the real one. And then the Subdestroyer one. So we just went in and drew a bass slide. The thing that's really cool about Cubase is that it has these various shape tools that you can use to draw different automations and things like that. It's got like triangles and various things like that. So you can use the parabola tool, which gives you the nice bass slide that you hear there. You can also you can select something after you've drawn it, and you can like change the shape of it by using these little modifiers here. And there's all kinds of different ways that you can affect it. You had a question?
Yeah. I actually had a couple questions. Particularly, is the Subdestroyer a VST or an RTAS plugin or what?
So it's available in all formats, but it's an instrument plugin. So it doesn't work like a processor. You don't send sound through it. It's you either use the buttons on the plugin itself, like to trigger bass drops, for example, like this, or you send MIDI to it.
Okay.
And then the MIDI tells it what to perform.
Cool. And also, do you ever use the Subdestroyer or anything for like pumping up the bass drum at all or anything like that?
Yeah, I could actually show you how to do that too, if you'd like.
Please.
So, one thing that's really cool that you can do with Subdestroyer is if you want your bass drum to be in a certain key, you can do that. So you would just load up Subdestroyer, and then you would try and find the lowest note that fits within the key of your song. So we'll just say it's going to be C. So you've got the... Probably that one, because this one, can't really hear that one very well. And it's probably a super low frequency. So let's say I like that one. I can go in and actually draw a little kick drum. Like that. And then, let me just loop this section. So, the longer you make these, the more bass you'll have. Right? And you can just, you don't have to use the grid, you can just like make it any size you want, whatever feels right. And then what you would do is you would combine that with like with a kick sound. So let me just load in a kick sound real quick. Let's see if I can actually find a kick sound. I have something in here somewhere. Weird. All right, let me, I'll grab one from Drumagog. Cool. All right, so you would just do a high pass on the kick. And then add in your sub-destroyer. And then you can actually change the key of the kick. And then you would be able to go into Sub-Destroyer, and we have all these various tools that you can use. You could change like the wave shape if you experiment with the different sounds that it creates. Do it like that.
Now, could you run like a trigger as a mono instrument through Sub-Destroyer, or is the Sub-Destroyer itself like only an instrument? So
Yeah, it's only an instrument. Okay. However, if you don't like working with MIDI, there is a way to automate the same thing. Mm-hmm. So we have an automation mode, and you can actually just move this knob right here to change the frequency. And next to the frequency, we have the musical note that it's equivalent to. So if you're like at 50 hertz, that's equivalent to a G. Mm-hmm. And then when you press the button, it plays a G. Like that, right? So you could go in and just like hit write mode on your automation, hit play, and then like click it. And now when I open my automation page, I can see that button press that I did. See that? Mm-hmm. And then what you can do is you can basically take one of those and like copy and paste it around like this. And then every time it passes over one, it plays one. Like that. So you could basically do the same thing that we just did with the MIDI, but now we're doing it with automation instead. And then you can like copy and paste it like that, and you get same deal. And you can change the length like this. Let's
How often do you use this in your own production?
All the time. Yeah. That's why I actually made the plugin, so I can make it easier for myself to do it. Because I was doing it the old-fashioned way, which is like getting out a sine wave generator and then making the sine wave and then printing it and then like cutting it all up and fading it and changing the length. And so now that I just have automation and MIDI control, it's like way easier to work with. Yeah. And yet, the cool thing is that if you do use the MIDI mode, you can select all of those MIDI notes like in your whole song and change each one's length, which is nice.
Do you change velocities for MIDI bass, or is it all 127?
Oh yeah, you do. You know,
Okay.
it just depends on what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
On this particular song and this particular example, pretty much every note is just full-on velocity, but you're going to come into some scenarios where you want to actually play around with the volume of each note and try to match what the performance was, especially when you're programming the low end. But I like the low end to be pretty much like almost to the ceiling, you know what I mean? Just because I want my low end to not fluctuate. I don't want it to flap around, you know, I want it to just be steady.
Do you put the pick attack on the grid for bass, but the transient for the guitar on the grid, right? Is that what you're doing?
I like to make them the same.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So pick attack in your line.
Before, yeah,
Okay.
before. And if you look at what he played, you should be able to see that. I know what we have isn't perfect, but yeah, you can see like this pick attack here. If I zoom in a lot, it's actually before the beat.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's late if it comes after the beat, but it depends on the tempo. Now, this song is at 206-ish, 204, 206. So it's fast, and so it makes sense for the pick attack to actually be in front of the beat, I think. But on slower songs, that might make it sound early, so you might want to put it behind the beat.
Got it. Can you sidechain the kick track into a sub-destroyer? Four wants to know that.
Can you sidechain a kick track? I don't think so. No. Because we tried to make it more of an instrument than we did a processor. That might be a good idea for an update someday.
Yeah. There you go.
I'll try it.